Hi everybody, welcome to another SketchyGOichie. This one is called How to Draw Hellboy. To be honest with you, I don't know that I can give you that much more advice on how to draw Hellboy more than what you would find on the internet by just literally Google searching Hellboy comics. The classic comics are the ideal, the sort of the pinnacle. The movie stuff is phenomenal. That Guillermo stuff is incredible, you know, his designs and his take on the character. But I guess in this case, I'm a purist. Maybe not in all cases art-wise am I a purist, but I love the Mike Mignola style. The simplicity of it, the sort of the economy of the line, and the way he spots the blacks and the contrast he creates. I love that stuff. So do yourself a favor if you have not gone back and read the old books, or if you want to get a sense of what I'm talking about, I would sort of use that as a guide when rendering Hellboy. That being said, there's been some tremendous takes. I love the word tremendous. I think I've used it in every single video in reference to other artists. But there is some spectacular. How about that? We'll use another adjective for other artists who are doing great work as it pertains to Hellboy and all the different iterations of him that have come out over the years. So I highly advise you to look at those, but in this particular video, this is my own take on him. I went angular and kind of sharp with the ink style. It's not too far off from what I normally do, although I think there's a subtle little sort of sharpness in some of the cornering and some of the edges. It's maybe a little bit sharper than what I usually do. I have a tendency to round things off, just to kind of give it a little more energy. But I think in this case, I think the edginess created energy all its own, and so I'm happy with that. And then as I move throughout the inking, I kind of sped it up so that way you can kind of see that the inking is really just all a feel thing. It's deciding on what, you know, where the shadows fall, where the emphasis needs to be. So sometimes I'll spot black into an area just to kind of highlight whatever, you know, which seems counterintuitive, but I'll put black in an area where I want to pull out the shape in front of the black. You know, I'll create a really heavy shadow, sometimes to push an object back into perspective. It's a great trick. It's an old school trick, but it works spectacularly for drawings. So I've zoomed way out, and you can kind of see the full ink there. I think, you know, the Hellboy at that point stands out on his own. I liked doing these tentacles really graphically. If you notice, it's really just a filled-in shape with a couple of little highlights and a line that runs down along the almost the center of the tentacle, and that pretty much created that shape. And then as I moved on to the coloring stage, I should mention now that this coloring stage probably has about 6 or 7 different layers. The layer count goes as follows. On top we have the black line art. Just below that we probably have, you know, the jacket color, you know, maybe the little color of his belt, the color on his shorts and his shoes. I think his gun is also on that same layer. His skin, that red of his skin, which is a little different. If you notice, it's a bit different from the background. And somewhere in between there, I chose to put in both a highlight and a shadow layer. And I just basically I'll make a selection of each and just start rendering the shadows, so that way the color is trapped within the selection and it doesn't go beyond. So I can't color into the background because I'm coloring within a selection on that shadow layer. And the same thing goes for the highlights. I'm coloring within the selection of, say, the skin, for example, you know. So once I start coloring, it will only stay within that selected area, and then I'll move on to another layer, and then I'll just literally shadow in a darker tone for like where you see along where his pants are, and then a lighter tone for the highlights on its own layer where his pants are as well, and same thing with the skin and the jacket and all of that. And then I think at the very end I decided, you know what, it might be kind of cool to do a white highlight layer, which is really sharp. It's the most intense light, obviously it being white. But you'll see, once I start getting to that point and start adding white, that's when the image starts to pop off the background. And really that's the ultimate goal, at least for me. I mean, there is a graphic approach. Oh, here comes the white now. There is a graphic approach where you're sort of the line art or the black against a graphic color, you know, solid graphic color, no gradients, is it's pretty cool. It's pretty iconic looking. I like that, and I'll probably do some of that effect on some future from some future projects. So you can see that I am literally just kind of scratching some highlight. It's on its own layer underneath the black line art layer. And right here I sort of chose to do a little a screened setting layer. I put a little bit of like a gradient highlight. It's just sort of like that's light that's illuminated from the blast coming out of his gun. A giant sort of multi-barreled gun. And at the very end I was like, oh, let me bring a little yellow into those tentacles just to kind of bring them out a little bit more. And then I just sort of ghosted it back, just sort of lower the opacity there. And my last and final step, again, one of my favorite parts, is sort of adding sort of an outer outline. I think it started at yellow, but that color got adjusted and changed several times, which is another benefit to having it on its own layer. And that layer is in between the background in the lowest color. So that's how it's not affecting anything. So the reality, there's probably 8 layers in this thing, now that I think about it. So finishing, absolute total finishing colors. There's where I went with the blue to kind of bring the gun in. Again, just so it pops from the background. I monkey around a little bit with his size in relation to the tentacles. You can see I rendered him full, but in the end I chose to zoom in on him. And that's where I zoom on out. So, enjoyed doing this for you guys. SketchyGOichie. Live your moment. Happy sketching, y'all. Peace.